Hello, Tim here, and welcome to this watercolor demonstration featuring this picturesque canal scene from the Venice quarter of Livorno, Italy. So in this video, I'm going to capture the essence of this charming scene known as the New Venice area, Venezia Nuova, I think it's pronounced. It's got a network of canals, very reminiscent of Venice. Slightly wider canals, but the same sort of bridges and architecture there. So our subject is this very busy canal lined with moored boats, quite small boats, all different sizes and shapes, framed by very sort of solid old historic stone walls and bridges. And I think this scene offers a wealth of interesting things to explore in watercolor. We've got the play of light on the water, a little bit of reflections on the boats. We've got strong light coming from the right-hand side, nice shadows coming across the scene, lots of different textures to deal with. The cobbled pathway on the right-hand side there, full of weeds and cracks. The range of contrast we got, the light of the boat, the darkness of the background of the bridge, and all those different architectural elements as well. Now, in this demo, I'm also going to be trialing out a few brushes given to me by a supplier who reached out to me called try and get this right, Fuumuui. Hopefully I pronounced that correct. And well, you know, I'm anyone that does follow me, you know, I'm a sucker for brushes, and I've used quite a few over the past few years. I've got a few here. For example, the good old Raphael, lovely handle, synthetic mop brush. There's the Jackson pure squirrel mop. Use that for quite a bit. The Casanio Da Vinci, nice brush. Again, synthetic squirrel. And latterly, the Tintoretto Series 1407. Anyway, so Fuumuui sent me these brushes free of charge, I should say. As a disclosure, I'm not being paid for creating this video, doing this video for them, but they did give me these brushes to try it. So I'll give them a go. And essentially, there's two types of brushes here, I reckon. Let me just get them out of it's a very nice box they sent me as well. Very sturdy. Nicely protected from the shipment from them. Right, these four brushes. So they're all Quill mop brushes, in that we've got the ferrule has got that kind of plastic sheathing with the wire bands around it to secure it. And there are essentially two types of brushes here, different sizes. So let me just put these to one side for a second. So first of all, this is like the slightly cheaper range. You will find this on their website. And they're all called Squirrel Mop Brush. But I reckon these might be a little bit more synthetic. They're a little bit stiffer than the next ones I'm going to show you. So there's a size 8 and a size 6 here. But if I just dampen this a little bit, so it's still quite springy. Do you see? I've dampened it, it does spring back to that kind of upright position. But it looks to me, I've not used these yet, but it looks to me all right. We've got a normal sort of length of hairs there. If I compare it to the Tintoretto, kind of similar length in hairs, although this was a bit bigger than my normal size there. So that's probably about 8 millimeters in diameter, something like that. Yeah, so quite springy, holds a lot of water. Going to get a good edge with those, I reckon. Good points them as well. And then what I think are more of a squirrel mop, these two. These are softer. They might cost a little bit more. I'm going to try them both, but if I just dampen that one. So that's dampened. If I just go like that, do you see it sort of stays in position? But So it definitely feels softer when I'm stroking it like that. Definitely feels softer to the other brush. So there's two sizes there. Again, a 6 and an 8. Right, the scene I'm going to paint then is this busy canal scene. From my photo, I'm pretty much going to copy that composition there. As I say, it's got lots of things going for it from a watercolour point of view, and lots of complicated boats to paint. So let's get to it. First step then, doing the drawing. Or I should say my materials, Saunders Waterford watercolour paper, cold press, 300 grams, 15 inches by 11 inches. So similar sort of dimensions to the source photo, sort of 4 by 3. The paints are from Mark Chapman in the UK. We'll cover those, my colour mixing as I go through. And I will cover the different stages of my painting as well, going over the drawing, first of all, then the washes, covering most of the paper, and then rendering the various textures of the boats and the stonework and the shadows, and then finally the finer details, just to try and bring everything together. Right, so we'll describe my colour mixing as I go through, but I've got neutral tint here, burnt umber, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, spring green, viridian green, cobalt green, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, ultramarine blue, then alizarin crimson, cadmium red, English oxide or light red, cadmium orange and cadmium yellow, and a few gouache, lavender, and a few gouaches down the bottom right hand corner. First of all, drawing then, and get in the main details of the scene, the main shapes of the scene. So first of all then, I think I will get in the top of the bridge, which is fairly horizontal on the left hand side, and then it goes up ever so slightly to the right. There's the old fortress building behind, so this canal goes through a little bridge, and then it goes out into a wider area, and then beyond that there's this old canal, this old fortress building, which you can just see the background. There's also the buildings on the left hand side, but first of all, let's get in the actual top of the harbour wall, and then it comes to a little corner, a little support, and then above the bridge, as I say, it goes up ever so slightly to the right. Down the left hand side, we've got the typical sort of architecture of the place, the building there, and then a few more buildings a little bit further away, going out towards the centre of Livorno. And now below there are some cars and bits and pieces on top of the harbour wall. Right, coming down to the canal then, on the far side, a row of boats. There's about 3 boats that we can see all together. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. All right, so get in number 1. I'll just change them slightly. And there's one on the left-hand side that is partially off the screen. I'll just imagine that we can see three complete boats. I don't like having like a boat half on and half off. So that's number 1 then. And number 2. And the level of the water goes ever so much, goes ever so slightly upwards. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 boats. There's a boat just going out to the wider area through the gap. And then coming back down on this side, we've got the the rear end of these boats moored up on my side of the canal. And their outboard motors on the back, and then we've got this starting from this bottom left hand corner, the main boat, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's about 5 or 6 boats going up the right hand side. So let's get this one in. I'm not sure if I'm going to get them all in at this stage, but at least try and get in the feeling of all of those boats. And they're sort of modernish boats, aren't they? They're not sort of straight, level gunnels at the tops. A little bit sort of curvy at the top. I can't really see the waterline of this one. There's a couple of fenders. There's all sorts of bits and pieces on the just attached to the jetty wall, all sorts of bits and pieces there. Right, go up to the other side of the bridge. There's that sort of angle there, and then that shadow comes down there like that. There's some steps up there in the top right corner. Quite a few of these shapes of outboard motors, or some covers on top of things. But it's creating some nice shapes as we go up that right hand side. These shapes are not sort of one straight edge there. It's sort of interspersed with these different objects, which makes it just a little bit more interesting. Now, I've got to be a bit careful here, trying to get the shape of all of the bows of these boats. Nearly there. Do that one a little bit different. And then, now there's a boat that's it's right in the middle of the canal going this way, and just about to go under the bridge. So rather than drawing individual boats out, sort of imagine them all as a group, but just spotted the shape of the bows and these sort of triangles of darkness, light, dark, and then those sort of lines, various lines there of railings and bit of trim on the top of the boat going across. Right, there is the crane right on that right hand third. Shall I put that in? I think not for this. I think it's a good scene also that it's going to test out the different brush marks I can make with these two different types of brushes. So it'd be interesting to see what range of marks I can get, how versatile that brush is. Right, I think that is about it. There's a wall there at the side of the steps. So steps there going up to the main road. And then let's just tidy up this bridge a little bit. I think that's it really as regards the main outline. So we've got the wall, we've got the background, we have the tunnel, the actual bridge itself. Let's get that in. a little bit like that. So that's going to be dark. A little bit lighter there, but darkest there. It's quite dark in that bottom right corner as well. All right, painting then. I'm going to start off with the stiffer brushes first, and then use the softer brush on top of that, in that if we lay down a layer of paint, if I go in with a harder brush on top, it might lift off this paint, so to speak. So my theory is with this one, go with the harder brush, go with the stiffer mop brush, and then use the softer one for the shadows and textures on top of that. Right, so that is going to be one of these two then, the bigger one or the smaller one. This bigger one, I've damped them already. Obviously, when you get brushes, mop brushes, they've got like sort of size on them, or that sort of sticky material to maintain their shape. I've given a good old wash under a damp tap, but I think that should be okay, that one. Right, let's lay down the sky first of all. And I might go, oh, it's got a good edge to it. Nice sharp edge. Right, so let's lay down the sky first of all. So a bit of yellow ochre. The light's coming from the right. Now, in with a lavender and a cerulean blue. Over the bridge. Now be a little bit careful as I come to the edge of the building, and then paint around that over those background buildings, and then down to the bridge. I will know, I think it's a little bit too big actually for me, for this size of paper. I'm just going to go for the number 6 of that one. Here we go, the number 6 then of the stiffer mop brush. Right, let's go in with a little bit of colour for the building on the left hand side, and then a little bit of colour for slightly more yellowy the buildings in the distance. Here we go. Now the colour of the bricks, that old wall, very, I'm just trying to get a stone-like colour, quite warm in colour, I reckon, and similar to the pathway on the right-hand side as well. So a warmish red. Let's go with a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of ultramarine blue, a little bit of red, burnt sienna again, ultramarine blue. Let's give it a bit of a test. bit more burnt sienna, bit more blue. So I need to go a little bit thicker with this. So it's interesting to see just to make sure the brush head sort of maintains its shape. And I've got good control. So it's quite a nice handle. Alternating things as I go over the scene. I'm going to paint around the boats. Paint around the boats. A little bit warmer in that section there. Just going over towards where it gets a little bit more shady near the entrance to the main canal, that bridge. Come down to those boats and then hop around. So where I'm painting now will be, I'll be going over this with more shady colour. Let's go over just create something that's going on beyond the bridge in the main part of the canal. Right, continue over the bridge, just cover it up. Down this side. Go back over there. And this dabbing of paint back, that area is still damp, but me going back into it with more paint, it might just give a little bit of a feeling of the texture of that stonework, just a little bit. But not too much. Oh, there's a bit of glare on you can see what's going on here. Right, just continue over. And around the back end of those boats, and then down this side here. A little bit of blue in little places, but mainly sort of warm colour. And perhaps I should be going a little bit like that with the actual line of the cobbles. Now on the right hand side, I'm just covering this area because this is going to be deep shade, burnt sienna, bit of cadmium red, ultramarine blue. So that's all that's going to be in the shade. And next, just a little bit of colour now for the water. Let's paint around the boats again. Colour for the water, cobalt green. Starting with, on the left hand side, just a bit of colour for that, the reflection of that boat. And then we go a little bit I need to get that angle up, don't I? We are going uphill a little bit. Around the outboard motor of that left-hand boat. Then continue up the side here, around those other outboard motors, and bottom left corner, actually the water there is a little bit bluer. I guess it's because it's catching a little bit more of the reflection of the sky. Paint around some of the objects attached to the harbour side, and then I could go up there, but this is still quite damp at the moment, so I'll just not touch that. Right, let me just dry this quickly, and then we'll go in with step number 3 of the process. We've done the drawing, we've done the initial wash, covering most of the paper except for those areas that are going to be quite light or dealt with in a certain way. Next is the darker values, which I'm going to go in with a softer brush, but this surface needs to dry completely. So excuse me a second. All right, everything's dried quite nicely. It's gone a little bit lighter, as you'd expect with watercolour. Right, down to then the softer of these brushes I'm trying out from Fuumuui. I will start with, let me start with the larger mop brush that gives us good, which is sort of similar to the Tintoretto brush that I'm using at the moment. Well, maybe the Tintoretto brush is slightly longer hair, but there's not much in it. They're pretty much identical. Right, so I've dampened this a little bit in my initial cleaning and preparation after I got it out of the box. So it's a good point to it. Right, so working from for me, top left to bottom right. I need to get in a little bit of that terracotta roof there. So I think I need to get the brush quite wet, because it's sort of, the danger is it sort of splays out a little bit like that. Do you see it's got that sort of tooth comb edge to it? So I need to just make sure the body of it is a little bit wetter, and then get in the terracotta roof, and then the other rooftops as well. Going into the distance, now a little bit of shadow. Ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. And try and get a good edge to it. And then this main one, deep shadow. Like that, and then a little bit more for the other buildings. Maybe going a little bit darker at the base, so neutral tint, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, but a lot of neutral tint. I'll come back and do the windows as a sort of final detail stage. Let's get in some of these background buildings going a little bit further away. Used a bit of lavender and burnt sienna. If you haven't tried lavender from not every manufacturer does it, but give it a go. It's a nice sort of opaque colour, very nice for doing things in the shade. I'm trying to get a good point with this brush. I think it needs to be a little bit wetter, that brush, to get that point of that brush. There we go. There's a square sign here. How is this brush at doing a geometric shape? There we are, got a good point. Now, the shadow, let's do the shadow going across here. Yeah, get all the shadows in, and then the boats. Right, so same as I did before, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, get a good point to the brush, and starting from about there's the shadow coming down. Down to the top of the boat, like that. And then there's a little kind of bit of trim that just runs from that to where the main shadow starts, which is there. A little bit of light hitting the top of that. Neutral tint. Little square windows of the boat just showing through. up to the curve of the bridge, continue over, then there's some background buildings, the fortress just beyond the bridge, up there, and then we'll come down those steps on the right hand side, leave a little bit of light. Shall I? No. Let's go over that. And then go darker, really dark in this bottom right corner. So I've picked up a little bit of neutral tint to go darker in there. And then now go bluer with my shadow. Blue with my shadow coming down. Make it a little bit bumpy, the edge, because it's going over an uneven surface. Nice and blue. Perhaps a bit of a soft edge there on that. This nearby edge here where it comes down towards me. Okay. Next then, boats in on the far side, and not too dark, a little bit of a reflection, and they're quite dark on the left hand side of the boat. And that forms a nice bit of contrast with the boat, just sort of connecting with it. Right, so shall I go with the smaller version of this? Yeah, let's just now swap over. So the softer Quill mop brush, all right, definitely very, see the squirrel-like. Good point to it. So the boats. That's that front boat that's sort of quite almost like a yellow ochre. Then the next one to it, well, it can be anything. A little bit darker, and then maybe the next one to it. Darker still. And then a bit of reflections for these as well. And go a little bit darker. Now I need quite a good point now with this step. And then a dark waterline as well. Dark waterline. There, not so dark. And then a little bit of reflection for those boats, which will be a darker green. So let's go a little bit more intense with the cobalt green, viridian green. See if that gives me a nice value, and also the brush shape to give me those reflection marks over the edge of the paper. Down to the edge of those outboard motors again. That's reflection of the darker shape. And then reflection of the darker value, the darker shadow of the bridge there. All right, now the boats. Let's go in with a warmer value for some of these boats. Now go cooler. We'll start warmer here for the shadows in these boats, then go a little bit cooler as I go towards the back. So bit of shade for the outboard motors. Check my point. I think that's all right. Actually, this near boat needs to be a little bit cooler. So going with a bit of lavender and go up to the front of the boat. The next one along will be a little bit warmer. There we are, and then next one along, so that's 1, 2, 3. Let's take a look at that one. Yeah, a bit more of a. I'll try and make these boats all a little bit different as I go, a little bit different, so they're not all sort of identical. Looks a little bit boring. That one goes up a little bit. Now go cooler now. This one's got a bit of a cabin on it. There's the back of the boat that's going through the bridge. And then no. These quite complicated, the shapes that we've got on the right hand side going up this near side of the harbour wall and just towards the bridge, really quite complicated, trying to work out where does one boat finish, but all I got to think about is just really abstract shapes. Get the right amount of paint on the brush. And then just a little bit of darkness for the tops of the boats in the distance. And now back to this side here and doing in the dark shade of the boat and the reflection, then work my way up. I think we're getting there. Darkness then along the top of this boat. And then really dark for, let's mix something dark up here, really dark for the hull of the boat. Coming down to the water line, create a nice edge with the harbour wall, and then the reflections of this boat. So that darker green, cobalt green, viridian green, little bit of neutral tint as well. Connect with the boat. I think it's there. Connect with the boat and then around those shapes on the harbour wall. Right, yeah, it's got to watch this point. It splays out a little bit, so I've got to keep making sure I'm observing that, making sure there's a right amount of, I reckon if there's a right amount of moisture in that brush head, then I've got a better chance of keeping that point. If it gets too dry, it kind of, the hairs will splay out a bit. Right, so let's go in now quite dark with the fronts of the boats as we go up. There, and then next one up. And then next one again. then darker still. So there's a shape of a cabin. And connect with the shadows coming across from the wall on my right. Okay, now at this stage of the painting, I would probably go into a smaller round brush, but I'll see what kind of sharp small point I can get with this one, all that small. Can I do it with a small, oops, the smaller synthetic of the two. Try and, which one's got longer hairs? I'll try and go back with the stiffer one. I'm going to do the windows and the details now. Let me just dry this a little bit down here. So what I've got to do now are the windows, details of the bricks on the harbour walls, a little bit more details of the boats, and define the quayside on my side, on this right hand side, a little bit more with the lines behind the blocks. Maybe a little bit of, shall I put in some weeds? Possibly, yeah. Right, so smaller of the brushes. Let's see what small point I can get to this for all of the details. There we go. Windows then. One, two, oh, quite a fine line. Maybe if I just try and get that edge a little bit more. Okay, just to find the shadow underneath the roof a little bit more, and then the windows in the distance. There'll be some lampposts and things going on there, perhaps some bits and pieces on top of the harbour wall, and little bits of objects creating a shadow up there. A little bit of definition to the brickwork there, perhaps some distant posts. Dark, very dark for the, I'd be careful not to smudge my work, very dark for the archway of the bridge. And back down to the boats. Maybe some lines at the top of those boats, just to, always helps with boats, get them. adding in that little bit of a line there. Now where I see little white bits in that harbour wall, they could be a little sign or something. I could add a bit of shadow to the left hand side of that just to make them a little bit more three-dimensional. Now there's that boat disappearing up the, can't make it out, but just before I took this photo, this boat was just going up there. Or rather, just after this photo, I took the photo, the boat was just going under the bridge. Right. Bit more detail to the boats now. I need to get in some of those railings, which, well, a lot of them are shiny and shiny sort of stainless steel. I'll put in a few lines like that. Not sure if that works, but right, a little bit of shadow to these fenders. Light coming from the right hand side, so a bit of light hitting the tops there. And then there's a window. In that boat. Perhaps a little bit darker in the water here, just to define these holes a little bit more. Okay, bit darker. Bit darker down there, where there's not a lot of sunlight. Continuation of those abstract shapes. A little bit, a few lines for the steps. There we go. Maybe a light there. Something at the top. Right, so lines for the key side on this right hand side. Just a few. See how fine a line. There we go. Perhaps just a few of them will be a little bit thicker, maybe some going that way as well. And also in the shadows as well. Bit of greenery. I will have to resort to my rigger brush, which I didn't. Fuumuui, I'm sure they must have loads of different rigger brushes, but I specifically, when they offered to send me some brush, I just said send me some Quill mops, but they will have the relevant riggers as well. I'll just get in a little bit of greenery. I'm going to dry this first, get in some greenery, and then just a few little bits of white gouache for the ropes and rigging. That'll just pull it all together and connect different elements, and then I'm pretty much done. Right, a little bit of greenery. So the spring green I've got with a little bit of gouache just to make it a bit thicker, more opaque. A little bit of yellow. That green again. These weeds. Just sort of growing at the edge of the harbour wall. Some of them growing in between the stonework. There we go. And just create some form to some of these little fenders here on the harbour wall. And now some white gouache with my rigger brush. So this is a rigger brush. Of course, most manufacturers do a rigger, and then some white gouache, just the right consistency, not too thin so it goes all milky, not too thick so we get that dry brush, but just in the middle. And just a few lines here. Then some verticals. There's a mast on the boat that's sailing out. Don't think I'd needed that line. Right, so there's some rope on the ground there. Perhaps a little bit of light on some of these steps. Just a little bit. That will dry. That will dry darker, being gouache, a little bit of light on that stair, on the wall of the steps. That sort of trim just below the top of the bridge. There we are. I think it is nearly done. Right, tiny bit of darkness behind some of these ropes. Just a little bit there. There we go. And the final thing will be, I will rub out some of these pencil lines. Let me just finally get the hairdryer out again. Right, rub out some of these pencil lines. Just get that crisp edge back again, just in certain places. For example, on those outboard motors. There we go. Some of the tops of these boats as well, particularly on the point. There we are. Well, a quick demo of the new Venice area of Livorno, Venezia Nuova, something like that. But also another element of the demo is just trying out. Yeah, always try out new brushes. Just to carry, I guess it does take a few paintings to get used to brushes. This is my first time using these brushes. And I will put a link in the description to Fuumuui website, but you'll find them there. Maybe they're on Amazon, I don't know. They're Quill mop brushes, and a couple of variants of it. A slightly lower cost one, and then a little bit more expensive with the softer brush. But good brushes, give them a go. Good points to them. Mop brushes, good hair length as well, nice sort of ergonomic handles. Not sure what the knobbly bit on the end is, but yeah, give them a go. Thanks so much, Fuumuui, and I'll catch up with you on the next video. Thanks very much indeed. Bye bye.